77 WABC invites you to a family fun day and softball showdown on July 20th with net proceeds benefiting Shriners Children's. John Sterling will call the game as the FDNY takes on the NYPD with special guests Dwight Gooden, Art Shamsky, 77 WABC hosts including Sid Rosenberg, Anthony Cumia, Lionel, Dominic Carter, and many more. For more info and to buy tickets, go to ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org. That's ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org. The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You are now entering the Stone Zone. We're a little bleary-eyed here because we were up in not only late in the evening, but into the early morning hours following the historic passage of the big, beautiful bill, the largest single tax reduction on the American people, a bill that included doing away with the tax on tips, a bill that included doing away with the tax on Social Security for 88% of current Social Security recipients, a bill that included funding for the Golden Dome, the strategic defense shield that would shield our country from incoming intercontinental ballistic missiles. A lot of doing away, obviously, the tax on tips. A lot of great stuff in the big, beautiful bill. Is it perfect? No, but it's very, very good. Heavy funding for ICE and Homeland Security, beefing up of the protections on our southern border. This is the centerpiece of President Donald Trump's agenda, and we're celebrating its passage. It is he really doesn't have to go back to the Congress again now for a long time for money. This was an epic, hard-fought victory. The president and the vice president and every member of the cabinet and his top staff members working into the wee hours of the morning to round up the votes. Also, congratulations to House Speaker Mike Johnson, who's a good friend of this show, a good friend of mine, for his persistence and his leadership. It was a great, great evening, and I believe this is a great victory for America. Meanwhile, yesterday, CIA Director John Ratcliffe released a harsh report implicating Obama CIA Director John Brennan, Vice President Joe Biden, National Security Advisor Susan Rice, former National Security Advisor James Clapper, FBI Director James Comey, Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, and Assistant Attorney General Rod Rosenstein of deep involvement in the Russian collusion hoax. This is not news to me. I have written it and reported it, as has Lee Smith, who's been on the show a number of times. But in this shocking governmental review, CIA Director Ratcliffe found that John Brennan, the former CIA director, colluded with FBI officials to include the infamous dossier that was fabricated by British spook Christopher Steele as evidence to build a case that President Donald Trump was a pawn of the Russians. Now, Brennan knew the province of the dossier. He knew it had been paid for by Hillary Clinton. He knew that it had been fabricated by a former British intelligence agent, but he insisted that it be included in a briefing that was prepared for President Barack Obama. Ratcliffe blasted the CIA and the FBI for their high confidence assessment based on the fact that they claimed that Russian President Vladimir Putin aspired for Trump to defeat Hillary Clinton. Ratcliffe determined that the decision by agency heads to include the questionable Steele dossier in the intelligence community assessment given to Obama ran counter to all of the fundamental tradecraft principles and ultimately completely undermined the credibility of the report as given to President Obama. Now, my good friend General Michael Flynn has argued that Obama knew that the Steele dossier was a fugazi, but he used it to frame Donald Trump. And of course, it was later used to rationalize the Mueller investigation into Donald Trump. It's interesting that the number two man in the Mueller witch hunt, Andrew Weissmann, considered by many to be the single most corrupt federal prosecutor in American history, with a long history of covering up mob murders, destroying companies, destroying the civil rights of many, a guy who was the de facto head of the Mueller witch hunt. He knew all the way back to his time as general counsel to the FBI that the Steele dossier was a fraud, but he nonetheless used it as the rationale for Robert Mueller's Get Trump witch hunt. Brennan was specifically called out in the report yesterday for caring more about crafting an anti-Trump narrative than getting the facts straight. Brennan was actually, according to the report, informed by two experienced CIA analysts that the so-called Steele dossier was flawed, but he ignored their concerns because he wanted to push the Russian collusion narrative, even at the expense of the intelligence community's reputation. During an interview with the New York Post, Ratcliffe did not mince words. He said, this was Obama, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, and others deciding we're going to screw Trump. It was, we're going to create this and put the imprimatur of the intelligence community assessment in a way that nobody can question it. They stamped it as Russian collusion, and then they classified it so nobody could see where it came from. This, to me, is the start of the unwinding of the federal deep state, and there is no man more guilty than John Brennan of waging war against the Republic. Just weeks ago, you saw Brennan, who really has no self-awareness at all, on MSNBC. He said he was appalled because Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard is cleaning house at that agency, and she has kicked out a number of the careerists who are, in fact, quislings, whose loyalty is to Barack Obama and Joe Biden. In some cases, she's actually referred a number of those individuals to the Justice Department for illegally leaking. It was a little over a month ago that I published the case for John Brennan to actually be charged with treason. It's a powerful case, and there are few deep state crooks who can match Brennan's duplicity and motive for undermining America's resurrection. In addition to his role of pushing the bogus Steele dossier in order to frame Trump for Russian collusion, Brennan also shamefully set up over 24 Trump advisors, including yours truly, for surveillance by the so-called Five Eyes English-speaking intelligence agencies. In other words, Brennan went to the Brits, the Australians, the New Zealanders, Canada, and said, look, we need plausible deniability. It would be illegal for us to spy on these U.S. citizens, so we want you to spy on them for us, and we'd like you to bump them. That is intelligence speak for monitor all of our phone calls, our text messages, and our emails. Brennan was instrumental in the illegal FISA warrants and wiretaps that were deployed in the lead up of the 2016 presidential election, which targeted Trump's most vocal supporters, including me. Brennan was also involved in the electoral interference operation against Trump in 2020. It was John Brennan who was among the 51 former or current intelligence officers who penned a letter proclaiming that the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation and propaganda, a falsehood pushed to strong-arm the woke social media corporations into censoring the legitimate story to prevent it from impacting the minds of the voters in the 2020 election. The New York Post, who broke that story, they found themselves suspended on Twitter simply for printing the truth. That was because of the pressure put on them by John Brennan and the CIA. Brennan is not a misguided ideologue who succumbed to Trump derangement syndrome, as many who have worked against Trump in government assuredly are, but rather Brennan is a serious subversive agent who has operated a mission to destroy this country since he was a young man. Brennan confessed during a lie detector test that he was an operative, a member of the Communist Party of America during 4 different presidential elections. Due to institutional rot, this incredible revelation somehow did not preclude John Brennan from serving in the CIA and rising to the position of director. Former FBI agent John Guandolo, a crucial leader of the Bureau's counterterrorism efforts following the 9/11 attacks, revealed that Brennan actually converted to radical Islam when working as the CIA station chief in Saudi Arabia. No doubt this resume made Brennan the perfect choice to be picked as CIA director under first President George W. Bush and then under President Barack Hussein Obama. This resume also makes Brennan a logical first choice for a deep state apparatchik, the first one to be charged with treason. Let me remind you, it was also John Brennan who signed the visas when he was the station chief in Riyadh for 4 of the hijackers who attacked America on 9/11. And it was John Brennan who got caught red-handed spying on a Senate committee that was investigating FBI Director John Brennan's illegal use of torture. I believe that his crimes constitute treason, even though I'm not a lawyer. Lawyers that I do respect, like David Schoen, Alan Dershowitz, and others, tell me that there is no statute of limitations on the crime of treason, and that somebody guilty of treason can be charged and tried for that crime at any time. Well, if that's true, I nominate John Brennan. There's a lot of others here who need to be brought to justice. That list includes Hillary Clinton, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Valerie Jarrett, Ben Rhodes, Mary McCord, James Baker, Samantha Powers, Lisa Monaco. This list goes on and on. These people tried to destroy my life. They tried to destroy the life of President Donald Trump. They tried to destroy the life of my good friend, General Michael Flynn. So my question continues to be, will anybody be held responsible? Will anybody be brought to trial? Or is the system so rigged that they're going to get away with their involvement in the single biggest dirty trick in American political history? Coming up a bit later on the show, Congressman Tim Burchett from Tennessee's 2nd District, he was up late as well, voting. Ultimately, he was undecided, but ultimately voted for the big, beautiful bill. He's going to tell us why he did that. But I'm anxious to ask Tim Burchett whether he believes that any of these deep state criminals who have now been caught red-handed between the report of Special Counsel John Durham and this report released yesterday by CIA Director John Ratcliffe, will anybody ever be held responsible? Or is it just business as usual? I'm Roger Stone. We're in the Stone Zone. When we come back, I want to talk about the political phenomena of Zohran Mamdani, how exactly a Marxist got nominated by one of America's great political parties, a party that's undergone a lot of changes. You're in the Stone Zone. We're going to be breaking that down for you when we come back. So please, whatever you do, don't touch that dial. Stay in the zone.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back in the Stone Zone on the Red Apple Audio Networks. You know, it's easy to dismiss the rise of Zohran Mamdani, the far-left socialist, if not communist, who's now the front runner to become the next mayor of New York City after winning the Democrat primary for that position, as the result of socialist youth indoctrination and rank choice voter ignorance. certainly those factors, in my opinion, are at play, but the bigger and more important lesson is that Mamdani won because he successfully framed himself as a crusader against corrupt, entrenched, out-of-touch political elites. Mamdani defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who was bounced from that executive position after being dogged by sexual harassment allegations, as well as defeating a host of other well-known Democrat politicians. Mamdani has juxtaposed himself well against the current New York City Mayor, Eric Adams. Adams has attempted to play the Trump card in recent months, suggesting that charges of public corruption levied against him are an insider conspiracy to remove a decent man from office. Unfortunately, this could not be further from the truth. In fact, Eric Adams never objected to Joe Biden's open borders policy. He ran as a full-throated advocate for New York City being a sanctuary city. He located shelters for dangerous illegal immigrants in stable working-class neighborhoods when he wasn't putting them in $500 a night luxury hotels. He's a corrupt politician who was accused of taking gobs of cash from foreigners, laundering it through New Yorkers, and putting it through New York City's, I think it's 8-to-1 campaign finance matching funds. At the time, prosecutors charged him. They said that Mayor Adams engaged in a long-running conspiracy, taking contributions from Turkish foreign agents, even though he knew they were illegal. These illegal campaign contributions were believed, based on his indictment, to be in excess of $10 million. This is the foreign cash that helped fuel Mayor Adams' rise from Brooklyn Borough president to the office of mayor. Anyone, such as the millionaire Bill Ackman, who believes crime is down in New York City, does not understand the way they have cooked the statistics to hide the sad truth, which is crime soared under this mayor. It is very interesting how these politicians seek to reinvent themselves. I think that America is going to stand by while we witness a at least three-way race for mayor. Mamdani as a Democrat, Curtis Sliwa, the certified Republican nominee, Mayor Eric Adams running as independent, and perhaps Governor Andrew Cuomo. I see a recipe here for disaster. The only good that can come of this, unfortunately, not good news for the people of New York, but if we elect a socialist mayor who wants to defund the police and open the prisons, raise our taxes to pay for all of his cockamamie programs, New York will be on fire by 2028, and it will be a showcase for the nation of what happens when you elect a radical Muslim communist mayor. This is Roger Stone. We're in the Stone Zone. When we come back, Congressman Tim Burchett from Tennessee, he was there last night in the wee hours when they passed the big, beautiful bill. It was a historic moment. We're going to ask him all about it. So please stay with us right here in the Stone Zone.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back in the Stone Zone. I admit it, we're a little punchy because we were up all night and into the early hours of the morning watching the progress of the president's big, beautiful bill, which has now passed the U.S. House of Representatives. Joining me now is one of my favorite members of Congress, Tim Burchett from Tennessee's 2nd District. That's East Tennessee. Tim is a rock-ribbed Ronald Reagan conservative, a bulldog champion of the taxpayers of both Tennessee and America, and a Donald Trump America First loyalist. Don't ever confuse Tim Burchett with a politician. He is a true patriot and joins us now to talk about this historic experience. Tim, welcome back into the Stone Zone.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. It is always a pleasure. And I say this with all sincerity. I wish my mama and daddy were alive to hear me on your show. They would just be floored that I know somebody of your stature, and I mean that with all sincerity. You carried the water for this country behind the scenes for a lot of years, and you continue to do it. And I'm very grateful for you, brother. I really am.
Well, that's very kind. Our listeners out there in Stone Zone land love your country wisdom. We get a lot of great comments whenever you're on because you have an amazing tendency to just tell it like it is. But last night had to be both nerve-wracking and exciting. You were a part of history. I'm very familiar with the big, beautiful bill. For weeks now, I have been beating back the disinformation regarding how the bill treats Social Security, how it treats Medicaid, what it does and does not do. This is the blueprint for Donald Trump's plan to take America into the golden age. I think we would all recognize that the bill was not perfect from the get-go. No piece of legislation ever is, but it got increasingly better. And those critics who say, well, it doesn't do enough to reduce spending, they're right, but this isn't the vehicle for that, is the way I look at it.
No, you're correct. I mean, I guess it's like a nice car. It depends on who's driving it. And it just so happens that Donald J. Trump is driving this car or this train. And, I had a lot of questions. And I'll be honest with you, I was not in favor of the bill because I didn't have the answers that I needed. And President Trump took 2 hours yesterday, if you can believe that. And him and J.D. Vance, who I'm continued to be, I wasn't a J.D. Vance fan, really. But after closed doors meetings with both of them, and it's two dadgum hours, Mr. Stone. And he, and you've been in a room with Trump, but the thing that got me, and as I left, I was telling some staffers this. They were, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, 14 people in a room, just fastballing questions to the president, and he answered every dadgum one of them." But the thing I like about him is, Mr. Stone, more and more, is when he doesn't have the answer. You always hear about this bravado, Trump bravado, or whatever. I don't know. I guess it's okay to be cocky when you're right and you know what you're talking about. And he knew what the heck he was talking about on every issue. And the thing I liked the most, though, when he didn't know, he would turn to one of his experts, call him by name, and say, "What's the answer to this?" And you've been in meetings with executives before, and many times, a lot more than I have, and world leaders. But a lot of them will just either lie to you or try to buffalo you to get you to think they know the answer, and their arrogance won't allow them to say, "I don't know." But that's not the way it was with Trump. And JD would fill in certain areas and provide support when needed. And he had people from the Treasury. He had all his people that you see on television in there. And I'll just be honest with you. I left after I left there. I was in his camp on the bill because he convinced me that economically it's the right thing to do, and many other reasons why as well.
Well, I think it's because he comes not from the world of politics, but from the world of business. And in business, you can't buffalo people who are trying to make a deal with. They want real answers. Trump operates like a businessman. He likes facts, hard facts, and hard realities. And I agree with you on your assessment of J.D. Vance. I was not always a J.D. Vance fan, but I am today. He's been remarkably effective behind the scenes, particularly in the confirmation of some of the president's better but more controversial cabinet picks. He doesn't get much credit for that, but he was really the guy up on Capitol Hill, rounding up the necessary votes, jawboning certain Republicans. I think J.D. Vance is doing a terrific job, and I think the American people are going to learn more and more about that over time. I do have to ask you, last time we spoke, we were talking about your bill. It came as a shock to me, but I checked it out. It's absolutely true. Millions of dollars from the American taxpayers flowing to the Taliban. And you brought this up. You've had legislation. You introduced a no tax dollars for the terrorist act. What is the status of that?
Oh, thank you so much for asking about that. And you're correct. It's $40 million a week. And the State Department, who I have no love for, and never have, I have a document, a 5-page document that says we've sent close to $5 billion. Now it's probably more than that because it's several weeks old. It has passed the House. It is in the Senate. And I'm hoping that Senator Thune will allow it to move through because Senator Sheehy, former Navy SEAL, and Tommy Tuberville, another straight talker, are both working on the bill. And I'm going to I'm going to try to get with them the first of the week and just and urge them along, because I think the country supports things like that. It's time to stop that nonsense, that corruption that has come out of the Biden administration. It's almost overwhelming, Mr. Stone, to be honest with you, because of the amount of out and right just stealing. And I think what really is become of it, I think the money's flowing back to Washington, D.C., and I think it's flowing into the pockets of members of Congress. And I hope they get caught, and I don't care what party they're in. I hope they put them in handcuffs and drag them out of this building, kicking and screaming.
I think you're exactly right. As you know, Elon Musk alluded to this back when he was running the Doge operation. I mean, USAID, which, by the way, was never enacted by Congress. It was created through executive order by President John F. Kennedy, and it had a legitimate purpose at the time. It was supposed to fund governments in our hemisphere, in Central and South America, who were fighting communism. A lot easier to talk to people with a full belly than when they're hungry. It had a very good and I think legitimate purpose when it started, but it morphed into a slush fund for the radical left. And we were funding terrorism. We were funding color revolutions. We were funding impeachments. We were funding all kinds of crazy DEI programs. The numbers boggle the mind. And the folks at USAID, they seem to believe they answered to no one. Like they were a government unto themselves. I give big credit to Secretary of State Marco Rubio and to the president, of course, for now defunding this massive leftist slush fund. I mean, if you're a Democrat, you haven't had a very good couple weeks. USAID is defunded. The Dow Industrial Average is skyrocketing. The U.S. Supreme Court has finally limited the power of rogue leftist district judges. Iran's nuclear weapons development program has been smashed. Zoran Mamdani is the new face of the Democrat Party, a man who talks about seizing the means of productions. I think he gets that right out of Marx and Engels. A man who talks about defunding the police and opening the jails. I kid you not. The Republican National Committee has 5 times more cash on hand than the Democrat National Committee, which has to evidently go borrow to stay afloat. Criminal illegal aliens are being deported with greater efficiency by that great patriot Tom Homan. President Trump is brokering peace all over, whether it's between the Congo and Rwanda, whether it is any of these world crises that he is bringing peace to. States are beginning to defund Planned Parenthood. 128 of your Democrat colleagues actually voted against impeaching Donald Trump. And white males like David Hogg are being kicked out of the Democrat Party like dogs. If you're a Democrat, there's not much to smile about these days.
No, sir, and it goes down to one person, Donald J. Trump. If could you imagine if Joe Biden was in the White House right now? I guarantee you, American boots would be on the ground, and young boys and girls would be losing their life in another endless war. I just can't stress that enough. His ability to fix a problem. I was asked by a reporter. I said early on about his negotiating skills. I said, the guy deals with Teamsters in New York City. I said, I think he can handle the Middle East. I mean, seriously.
There's no question. There's no question.
He's handled that deal, and he handles it with honestly a lot of grace, really, considering. And when he dropped his F-bomb last week about the Middle East, I was in the. I talked to a lot of Democrats, and especially in the gym. You know, and there's no cameras, nobody staff, nobody around. And they thought that was a very accurate statement, and it needed to be said. And and I think it summed it up. I know Franklin Graham doesn't like all his cursing, and I'm not a fan of it. But it was accurate. You can't say anything other than it was accurate. And he called it. And if it wasn't for him, we would be in another endless war. And peace is breaking out everywhere. And the only people that are winning in the so-called Democrat Party are Marxists, because, and my theory on that is that you can say what you want to about it, but this is my theory. I think that the the Democrats that are in power realize that they're going to lose everything, and they fear more losing their job than losing the country. So they'll go with that far left. That is just a very slim portion of their numbers, and they'll sacrifice their moderate members on the altar of liberalism, Marxist wokeism, really, and that's exactly what they're doing. You're going to see a lot of those people are going to get beat, and Republicans. And I hope that we have MAGA Republicans that we start electing and quit with this shenanigans that some of our former leadership did by undercutting those type of leaders, because that's exactly what happened in the past. You know, I'd go to these recruiting things and it looked like we were recruiting for Hooters waitresses and not members of Congress, and that America did not respond very well to that, and that's why we have such a. And one other thing, and I'll shut up because it's your show, but I keep saying this: our approval rating is in the dumps, or Congress is, for good reason, but Donald Trump's is soaring, and the reason is he listened to America and he's doing what they said. Strong border, strong economy, strong military. America bows to no one in this world right now. We are the envy of the world once again, and it's because of Trump. And if we do not acknowledge those issues, we will continue to be in a 3 or 4 person majority, or possibly even lose the majority to the Marxist.
Yeah, I think we're going to defy history. As you know, traditionally, the party in power loses seats in the off-year elections, but traditionally, businessmen don't get elected president of the United States. All of our presidents have been governors or senators or congressmen or generals. So I think Trump, all of the standard rules of American politics, the conventional wisdom, if you will, I think all of that does not apply to Donald J. Trump. Presidents aren't defeated and then lose a disputed election and return to the White House, with one exception. Grover Cleveland, a Democrat who happened to be, like Donald Trump, from New York, actually last of the great conservative Democrats, a truly great president. Yes. It is amazing how Trump defies all the rules and changes the whole game side of American politics. I honestly think that when he survived an assassin's bullet in Butler, Pennsylvania, that it gave him a new urgency. Not just a new serenity, because I found him much calmer and much more determined after that, but it also gave him a much greater sense of urgency. I think he fully understands that he has 4 years to save this country, and he is not wasting not a single minute of it. Having spoken to him a couple times extraordinarily late at night, or I should say early in the morning, he is not wasting a single minute of his time in this Herculean effort to turn around an ocean liner, to change the entire direction of the country, to return us to our fundamental constitutional roots, and to secure that golden age that you and I have talked so much about. Folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Congressman Tim Burchett from East Tennessee. He is a former mayor of Knox County. He is a bulldog defender of the American taxpayers, as well as the taxpayers of Tennessee. He also is a guy who tells it exactly like it is. You're in the Stone Zone with Tim and I. Whatever you do, please don't touch that dial, because we'll be right back for a bit more.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. Congressman Tim Burchett and I are celebrating the passage by the U.S. House of the big, beautiful bill. Tim, I saw on X that you received a copy of my book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. I hope you're enjoying the book. It certainly is an outline of the shenanigans of the deep state. I spoke earlier in the show about the revelations from CIA Director John Ratcliffe yesterday, implicating former CIA Director John Brennan, former National Security Advisor James Clapper, and FBI Director James Comey in orchestrating the greatest single dirty trick in American political history, the Russian collusion hoax, which was nothing less than an abuse of power, in which they used the full authority of the United States government and the extraordinary capability of our intelligence agencies to try to undo an American election and remove a duly elected president. So I guess my question to you is, are we ever going to see justice? Are any of these people who have engaged in a treasonous crime for which there is no statute of limitations, do you think we will ever see anybody held accountable?
I doubt it. I just, because this town is so crooked, Mr. Stone, and they protect their own. And I just, it infuriates me. That's why I know there's a God in heaven, because there will be justice one day. I just don't think it's going to be on this side of the grave for most of them. I think they're going to lawyer up, and yeah, they'll get some small potatoes like you saw at the auto pen debacle at the White House. But, some small potatoes get smashed. But the reality is I just don't see it. But what I would hope that would drive Americans to the polls and say, we've got to fix this. And you all would hold us accountable. I mean, I'll vote for it. I'll push it. But I'm not on the Judiciary Committee, and I'm not one of those that's a little out of my realm. But I would hope that all I can do is raise hell about it, and hopefully Jamie Comer will bring it up in our committee, and then we will have it as and then we will push the Justice Department to do something about it. So I would hope that we can do that, because once you do one, the rest they'll lawyer up and they'll start squealing. They'll squeal like stuck pigs, and dadgummit, that would be a good start, I would think.
I completely and totally agree. So you have a new podcast entitled Unscripted, where you'll be peering behind the veil in Washington, D.C. How will those listening be able to access your show, and what have you planned for the initial episode?
Yes, sir. It's on YouTube and Rumble, and I would honestly love to get you on there. Are you in New York? Is that where you are?
I am actually in South Florida at this moment, but I'd be honored to be on. We can arrange that.
Well, I would love to. I'd go to South Florida to see you. Honestly, I could see myself. My wife and daughter love the sun and they love the surf, so that would be a great thing. And I would, but yeah, it's on YouTube and Rumble, and we are. I'm not real polished, and I'm not a wordsmith like you, and so it's I stumble through it a little bit, but people seem to enjoy it and they get a lot from it, and we're going to start getting some people and making some people uncomfortable, and that's my goal. They'll give me a little script, but I never follow it. I don't know why I pay those people to do any of that stuff, because I get in there and get ticked off about something, and I'll start railing on it, and we'll start digging, and that's what I intend to do with this thing. It's sometimes kind of difficult to get people that are interesting, because it seems like everybody's got a podcast, but it's a great way to reach out to the younger folks. And I think as older politicians like yourself and myself, it's not all bluegrass and barbecue anymore. It is it's the social media. It's these radio shows. It's all of the above. And to leave any of that on the table, I think, is where Republicans miss out, because the Democrats are a little bit ahead of us on that kind of stuff.
All right, we have to end it there. I want to thank our guest, Tim Burchett, a man who tells it like it is, and also thank all of you for joining us today in the Stone Zone. We'll see you tomorrow on the 4th of July. God bless you and Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
77 WABC invites you to a family fun day and softball showdown on July 20th with net proceeds benefiting Shriners Children's. John Sterling will call the game as the FDNY takes on the NYPD with special guests Dwight Gooden, Art Shamsky, 77 WABC hosts, including Sid Rosenberg, Anthony Cumia, Lionel, Dominic Carter, and many more. For more info and to buy tickets, go to ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org. That's ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org.